I'm almost 70 years old, and over the decades, I have learned a thing or two because I have been an Aspie, a person with Asperger syndrome, my entire life. And one of the things I've learned we're going to talk about today, and that is the phrases that people who bully Aspies use against us. And it's very helpful, be very helpful to you to hear this because, well, you can build your defenses, build that boundary around you, border, to protect yourself and your integrity and well, protect your mind. Phrase number one is this. I already told you. One time I heard this phrase, I was in the hospital and there was this little doctor, little woman, middle-aged, wore high heels to work every day. So I don't know if that implies a narcissist doctor that wears high heels, but maybe she just liked wearing high heels. But the advantage was you could always hear her coming. Way down the hallway. Okay, here comes the doc. But she was very competent, very good at what she did, but she had this pushy personality, and one day she came in my room, hospital room, and I asked her a question, and she snapped at me. She said, I already told you that, or something like that, something akin to it. But you could see in her face that immediately she caught herself because I don't know about where you live, but in our area, that's something that that's very unprofessional. They keep close tabs on medical professionals, healthcare professionals. And if they get out of line, hey, they could possibly lose their jobs. I mean, it's just that serious. In fact, after you go to a healthcare provider in our area, almost always they will send you a survey. A lot of times they actually call you on the phone and ask you how the people did, how the healthcare givers did, whether or not they treated you right, so forth. So you can see it in her face. She knew she shouldn't have said that. But that's one of the phrases that bullies will use on people with Asperger syndrome. Now, they will use these phrases on everybody, but because they pick up on us that we are a little bit more susceptible and easier to bully, they will do it more to us than they will do it to other people. Now, I've got 6 of these. We're going to go through them fairly quickly, but my guess is there's far more than 6. So I'd kind of like to know if you can think of another phrase that people use to bully you if you're an Aspie, and if you're not an Aspie, maybe some phrase that you know that bullies use, not just on Aspies, but on anybody and everybody. Put those in the comment section. That will help other people who read the comment section, so you can be a part of what we're doing here. Number 2 is this: a bully will say, "I knew that would happen." When I was thinking of this, or when somebody says that to me, I don't always answer them, but the thought that comes to mind is, well, if you knew it would happen, why didn't you say something? Maybe you're working on something and you're not doing it quite right and it falls apart, and somebody will say, I knew that would happen. Okay, well, why didn't you say something? And the fact of the matter is they didn't know it would happen. They suspected that it possibly could happen, but they didn't want to say anything because if they said this is going to happen and it doesn't happen, then they look stupid. Bullies generally don't like to look stupid, which is, that's so ironic because there's nothing any dumber than a bully. They're just immature. They're childish. They haven't grown up. And some people, they don't grow up ever. I mean, they could live to be in their 70s, 80s, and beyond. And they're still bullies. I guess it's part of their personality, or no, maybe their parents didn't love them enough to discipline them when they were little. I don't know what the cause is. But my guess is it's probably inherent. They probably have a genetic, I don't want to call it a defect, but they probably have a genetic heritage that precludes that personality trait where they feel like they have to bully other people. I knew that would happen. Or another iteration of this is they will say something like, they will say, so why didn't you do it this way? Or why didn't you see that coming? There's different ways they would say that. Now, something that is very close to that, phrase number 3, is the They will say something like, I knew you would say that. This often comes in the course of conversation, and it's like they're saying, you are so predictable. I knew you would say that. Well, the thought, I'm pausing because a thought comes to my mind that Aspies generally don't engage in that much conversation with people. Some Aspies, by the way, overindulge in conversation. So it's not a ubiquitous trait. It just seems to be a dominant trait that we tend not to like to converse with people. And so you might not run into this one too often, but inevitably there's some bully out there that whatever you say, they will say, I knew you would say that. I saw it coming. Where do these people get that? And I don't think it's just bullies that do this. I think everyone does it. But bullies tend to overuse such phrases. But, we knew people would say things. What are we? Are we somehow telepathic? Are we fortune tellers? We know things are going to come? Well, if you knew someone is going to say something, if you knew that would happen, you ought to be very, very wealthy because you would do very good in Las Vegas or in the stock market. I don't think they knew it would happen. I don't think they knew you were going to say that. In fact, I'm fairly positive of that. Just something people say. Number 4 is this. Everyone's heard this, right? What part of no don't you understand? First time I heard that, I got to admit, I thought it was kind of funny. I thought it was amusing. Yeah, I mean, how simple can this be? I said no, and now you're questioning what I said? Well, why would a bully say that? Well, a bully would say that because their word is the final answer. They're kind of arrogant, a little bit narcissistic, and when they say no, they mean no, and there's no question. That's the end of it. There's nothing else to talk about. They said no. So what part of no don't you understand? Now, I heard a woman say that one time, having dinner with a couple, and she snapped at her husband. She said, what part of no don't you understand? And I looked at him after she said that, and I said, was it the N or was it the O? And neither one of them thought it was funny, but I got a kick out of it. Number 5, you always or you never. Now that's kind of like, number 1, number 2. It's like only it's hindsight instead of foresight. You always do it this way. You always say this. You never do what I want to do. You never go here. You never say what you're supposed to say. You never clean this. You never do that. You never do your share. It's just endless the ways this is used by bullies. Maybe it's true. Maybe sometimes we don't do things we should do, and maybe sometimes we do things that we should not do, and maybe sometimes we need to be called out on it. And there's nothing wrong with that, calling us out on it, as long as it's done in the proper way. But I'm guessing that probably 99% of the time the people say that, and once again, it's not just bullies. Everyone does this. Bullies just overuse it. But seriously, aren't we just kind of exaggerating when we say that? Bullies, aren't they kind of exaggerating when they say, you never do this? Well, you mean you never ever did that? Well, maybe not. But chances are they're just trying to make you look worse than you really are. And the reason people use these phrases is not only to make other people look bad, but to make them look good themselves. Look good in comparison. Number 6. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. Or some iteration. Who did this? Remember when you were a little kid and your parents would say, who messed up the whatever? And you would say, not me. Or who broke this? Not me. Maybe it wasn't you. But little kids, they don't like to assume responsibility for anything, even if it's obvious they did it, And people who are bullies will say, it's not my fault. Well, if it's not their fault, whose fault is it? And it's obviously yours. So what they are doing is they are transferring blame from themselves to you. Now, use these phrases. Don't use them yourself, but use them in the sense that listen for them in the future. And if you hear people saying these things, and again, as I mentioned earlier, this is 6 of probably, there may be hundreds of them. But these are 6 that came to my mind when I was putting together this presentation. So just, use the information that you've heard. I guess I should have said it that way, to protect yourself, to defend yourself against bullies in the future. Look on the screen what you see. There they are, 2 rectangles. You want the conversation to keep on going. All you got to do is just click on one of those triangles. And if not, well, thanks for stopping by, and we will see you next time.